On the topic of our children and their future, if they have one, if they manage to make it through school without getting harmed, the national report card scores recently came out and they don't look great. So let's
Shocker.
take a look. US high school students' reading math scores hit a new low. American eighth graders have recorded their lowest science scores since 2009. 38% of students scored below the NAEP basic, marking a 5 percentage point increase since 2019. The Education Secretary, Education, Linda McMahon stated that results confirm a devastating trend. And she's using this basically to affirm why they want to destroy the Department of Education. And the results show that gaps between high and low performing students have widened. Not mentioned here is also that the reading scores are lower than they've been since 1992.
Jesus.
Yes. There's also a widening gap between girls are falling behind in STEM subjects again. So science, technology, engineering, and math.
That's right,
And
yeah.
Engineering and math. Yeah.
it's not just, some of it is related to the pandemic, but it's not just about the pandemic. These scores were not great before then. So what do you think of this?
I just think it's, you see that these scores are so much lower. And, and yet it makes sense because look at what our leadership is. It's all people that don't know what the fuck they're doing. And so now it is literally just trickling down and affecting everything. What did these people expect when you have people that don't know what they're doing? What do you expect when you cut free breakfast and free lunch and kids can't focus at school? What do you expect when you cut certain mental health programs from schools and like the guidance counselors can't be guidance counselors because teachers are so underpaid and schools are so understaffed that people have to do 3 or 4 different jobs instead of just one job? And you know
And then they're at home in environments where these things are going on as well. And kids pick up on everything. They get the vibes. They have a lot of this. They see what's going on out there. And then they have the burden of wondering if somebody's going to come in there and shoot the place up.
and I'm like, so for me, for those who don't know, I'm married to a teacher. And so, I saw what he had to deal with through COVID. And like during COVID, a lot of his kids couldn't even be in class because, like, yes, it was virtual, but like their parents weren't home and they had to take care of their siblings or they had to do certain like house chores and stuff. And the thing that just makes me so mad about all this stuff with government in general, and not just this administration, but this goes back a while, is they just love to look at this big picture and try to poke holes to see what's wrong. And it's so many little things that lead to the bigger problem. And they don't realize it. And they don't care either.
They don't care. Yeah. They realize it. They know all. They're not stupid. You got Ivy League education. I went to community college and then I went to a wonderful university.
Listen, the way that these people love to throw out that they're Ivy League, it makes me think that they didn't get there for their brains.
Right.
Well,
But what are we going to do? Go ahead.
let's talk about solutions. One solution is turn the TV off. It's time to get to the books.
Mhm.
Okay? It's time to read more. We got to let these kids turn the TV off, but also they need to go outside. I'd rather them go outside and
Yes.
read a book or walk around the block because they need that exercise. If you don't get that type of exercise, you are not able to focus. So it walks hand in hand. You got to exercise, you got to read, but nourishment. You also have to make sure the child is getting the right nourishment. So I'm just only putting it out there. Parents,
I think solutions are very important because I'm concerned about this. One of the areas where students also scored very low was civics. And civics is related to our government, and people who are 18 years of age are able to vote in this country. And between the low civic scores and the low reading scores, and the reading scores are basically like, can you read a paragraph and use context clues to figure information out? And a lot of people can't do that. So what are we going to do about this growing aging voting populace that can't their reading comprehension is poor and they don't understand how the government works?
I believe a lot of it is going to have to start at home. Don't let your kids have access to social media. And I understand that a lot of people, you hear a lot of parents saying, oh, well, that's so hard and this, that, and the other. I raised 3 children when social media first came about, and I had total control over everything that they did. I was fortunate enough to be a stay-at-home mom. So my kids were well nourished. They did have limited TV time. They had a bedtime, and I was there with them when they were doing their homework. And regardless of what was going on in the school, how crowded the class was or anything like that, as a parent, you do have a sense of control. Now, I was very fortunate because I was able to stay at home with my kids. And I know a lot of parents can't do that, but there is still a way for you to have control over your children's devices. I could turn my kids' phones off when I wasn't at home. I had control over the electronics. There are ways that you can do this and encourage your children to read and to study. Have a book in your hand. That will encourage your child to want to pick up a book and read as well. So I think, the parents have to really start getting involved again in their children's lives and in their education.
And
I think that's a really good point you make about parents reading. Kids aren't going to be reading if they don't see examples in their lives of other people reading. And I've read comments from parents and seen studies where parents want their kids to read, but they don't want to pick up a book themselves. They don't even want to read to their kids.
Some of them can't read to them, and that's my problem. I'll just keep it at 100. I see people, and I'm finding out, like I said, I do healthcare, and I'm with a lot of people from all different demographics, and I'll ask them questions, and I have to ask oftentimes, no judgment. Can you read? Are you able to write? And someone was like, yeah, I can write my name. If you want me to write you a book report, I can't do it. And then you find out they have 5 or 6 kids, and you're like, if the kids are at home and they need help, who they gonna ask? And if the parent doesn't see the value in the education, then a lot of times the parents, other than being busy, they just not engaged, or they have one special needs child that takes a lot of their energy and the job. So I think it's a young generation raising kids that they really not prepared to have and to raise properly. And I'm not saying all of them, but most of them are single parent households with kids from several different fathers.
One of my friends, she taught for like 30 years in inner city school district. She was a special ed teacher. And she said, like, what you were saying, Anitra, was like the kids don't get that kind of help at home. And like one of the things that, she deals with is some moms would just have like literally 6 or 7 kids for the child support. And so like they would just expect the teacher to be the parents when they're at school. And it would be like almost a reset button every day when
it's sad. And I'm not trying to condemn the kids, but it's just really sad that the parents, and then, now they're going back to cursive and stuff, but you have people that cannot read it. And I write cursive, and I just came from a job where we had to write our orders of everything. And I went to a guy I worked with as a young guy, and I said, can you read this? I said, no judgment, because he thought, we were cool. He was like, not a word of it. I don't read cursive. I said, well, what would you do? If you came to this job, and he was working there.
My local library system has a literacy training program for adults. I would like to join in the future. It requires a 1-year commitment. So I just have to have the time, but they really focus on helping adults learn the reading skills that they need just to read things like read your lease so you can understand what the terms of your lease are so you don't get fleeced by your landlord. And I think we need more programs like that. I encourage people, if you're interested, volunteer for a literacy program, because there are, to Anitra's point, adults out there who they know basic reading, but they don't have reading comprehension skills, and that's really important. It's hard to get through life. There are people who can't even read the subway signs in New York City. I had no idea. Like, imagine.
And that's
They
why
get through.
it's so sad that they're cutting so much financing for so many different programs, because you do have parents that they may want to help their children, but they can't. And then the after school program has been defunded or shut down. So you don't have that alternative either. So, it's a multifaceted problem. It has to do with the home. It has to do with social contracts, and it comes from the government on high all the way down to the household. So, it all has an effect.
Well, I know a lot of nonprofits. I used to work with nonprofits, and they had wonderful programs like that with reading to the children and helping them out with their schoolwork. But now those things, I'm starting to hear really bad stories about how those programs are being cut because they're not getting the funding. And it is so important. I think reading is one of the most important things in your life, starting from a small child onward.
Yes.
So I'm hearing these stories that you're all telling today, and that's awful. Yeah, it seems like, Keisha, that sounds like a great program. And I know I've always wanted to do something like that. So your program is in a local library? Is that what
Yeah, it's through the Brooklyn Public Library System.
Yeah.
We had one here years ago called the Gateway Program, but I don't know if it's still up and running or not.
Yeah, definitely check out your library's programs. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say my grandfather could barely read, and he went to one of those programs, his local library, and it opened up his world. He just wanted to read the Bible. And so that's what inspired him. And he was very proud of it. I remember him coming home and opening up the Bible and reading to us, and he was so proud. It's a great program.
Aww.
Yeah.
I had an 84-year-old man graduate with me.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
He taught himself to read.
Yeah.
A lot of library stuff too now has online stuff. If you have like a library card that you can connect to other programs and other libraries too.
But then you got Wi-Fi issues, and you got all these people the people are suffering the most are the poor and marginalized, because they can't. And then they have all these vouchers and stuff, and these programs, and these schools are not doing the curriculum right. It's just not going well. You got whole classes of people here in my town that maybe like there's 30 kids and maybe 27 of them got to repeat the grade. That's a problem. That's the systemic problem. And then these kids keep going back to school, and now they're going back 2 and 3 times. By the time they graduate, they're going to be 25 years old. And so we've got to start caring about those kids and make sure that funding is in place. But right now, they say Trump likes them dumb. I hear you like them dumb. Well, Donald wants us dumb. And if you have dumb, then you have people just like when they wouldn't let Black people read and learn how to read. That knowledge is power.